Hello, everybody, and welcome to Power Rankings for Week 14 of the NFL season. Last week was a full 16 games, and it led to a bit of chaos throughout the league. So this has been fun to come up with. Before we dive right into it, I want to quickly say if you are new, subscribe, we greatly appreciate it, and leave a like as well. Comment down below your rankings, any disagreements you have, because those are bound to happen. But yeah, let's dive right into it. Honorable mentions to kick things off. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the first one. Wasn't a great game against Carolina. It took overtime to get the win, but it is still a big win for Tampa since the Falcons lost, and it now puts them tied for first in the NFC South. Baker didn't play the greatest, threw two interceptions, had one touchdown, which was to Mike Evans, who had a pretty good game on his own right, 118 yards receiving, and that great touchdown grab early on in the game for Mike Evans. The big focal point, though, was that Tampa Bay Russian offense. It played incredibly well. Bucky Irvin, 152 yards and a touchdown on the day. Rashad White, 76 yards on the day. It was a really good run-in showing for Tampa, which kind of a good thing. Tampa, at least when they've had their most success, relatively, was a pretty good Russian offense behind it as well. When we look at 02 when they won the Super Bowl that year, it was work done on Mike Allstott. You look at 2020 when Brady was there, they had Leonard Fournette and someone else I cannot remember. But it was Tampa, when they have a good running game behind them, it tends to bring success to that team, even with the good receivers that they have and the passing game that they come alongside it. But it's just you need to be able to control the clock. They did in this game. The defense played well, considering that Carolina has been an upsurge team this year. I like what I saw from their defense, making some big plays late. And yeah, they did benefit from a missed kick, but who doesn't at this point in the NFL season? Yeah, they are an honorable mention. Next up is the Houston Texans as an honorable mention. It got the win, wasn't pretty against a divisional foe, and it really took until that second half to get the offense going, and wasn't really expecting that. Again, Houston's a weird team this year. They're struggling, relatively struggling against teams they should be able to handle a lot more confidently, and it was just not great. Mac Jones had a pretty good game against that defense, in part because when he came in, the defense for Houston got a lot weaker due to the ejection of one of their best linebackers after that very Kiko Alonso-esque kid against Trevor Lawrence, dirty as it. I'm pretty sure it was just announced earlier today of recording this that he would be suspended for 3 games, and that is well deserved considering that Kiko Alonso wasn't even suspended for his hit. But they have their bye for Houston. They can regroup, readjust. They have these final stretch of the season coming up, and they're trying to avoid a collapse the same way that Tennessee did 2 years ago, same way Jacksonville did last year. Trying to avoid it. They're looking good, but they're looking okay. Some of these wins could have been a lot better, but they're an honorable mention. The final honorable mention is the Los Angeles Chargers. That win was anything but pretty for that offense. I mean, they had less than 100 yards in the second half of that game, and they still somehow found a way to win that game. In part because of their defense. They picked off Kirk Cousins 4 times, including a pick 6. I don't know what Cousins was seeing out there, but it wasn't good nonetheless. But for the most part, it was a defensive focus game for the Chargers, which is not something we're used to for this team, even this season, where the offense is still finding success in some capacity. The big thing was Tyler Algier held to only 16 yards on the day for that defense, really forced Atlanta to pass the ball, and we saw how well that worked, considering that they had 4 interceptions. But when it comes to the offense, though, Ladd McConkey was playing really well today. At the half, the Chargers had 115 yards of passing offense. 105 of those went to Ladd McConkey. He was the primary weapon. He was the only weapon. He was catching damn near everything thrown his way. If it wasn't for Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, again, Ladd McConkey would be my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's playing so well. The Chargers come in as an honorable mention because of it. Coming in at number 10 is the Washington Commanders. And finally, they get a big time bounce back game that they play phenomenally well in against a lesser tier team like they should be able to do. It was against the Tennessee Titans, and the first 4 drives of the game for Washington were all touchdowns, getting them to an early 28-0 lead. And the defense played well earlier on that point as well, forcing 2 fumbles to lead to that big time lead that they were never going to look back from once that happened. It was a big time boost in that one. Jaden Daniels played really well, only having 5 incompletions, 4 total touchdowns, 3 through the air, 1 on the ground. And I really like that they're starting to use his legs a bit more in some capacity. Because that was the thing during their losing stretch where I'm just like, Jaden Daniels is not running the ball enough. No, not enough QB, not enough design QB keepers, not enough just him taking it and running himself through scrambles, not enough bootlegs, motion, like just not using his mobility enough. They did in this game. It led to success, but the ground game as a whole played really, really well. Brian Robinson and Chris Rodriguez combined for nearly 200 yards on the day. That's perfect. That's what you want to see from this Washington ground game because when it is clicking for them, it makes their offense that much more tougher. And they're sitting well. Again, the defense played well, forced 2 fumbles, and then they're kind of coasting from there. Should have been 28-0 at the half, but they gave up that long one to Westbrook and Keeney. But still, Washington playing well, looking good. If things fall the right way, they could obviously still come up with the division. But I think at this point, they're trying to get back to the playoffs for the first time since they won the division in 2020. It'll be a big time step for this team. Dan Quinn has been playing well. Jaden Daniels is looking good. It's going to be a fun finish of the season to see who gets Offensive Rookie of the Year between him and Bo Nix. But yeah, Washington comes in at number 10. Number 9 is the Seattle Seahawks. They're extending their lead within that division as they have a big time game next week on the road against Arizona. But for now, they're sitting alone at the top of that thing with a good come from behind win over the New York Jets. That was highlighted by one man in particular, that being Leonard Williams. Aside from what ended up being a big time game sealing sack late in that game, he also kind of started the comeback in this one. Special teams played awfully. They were down to a point. They were down by 14, and the Jets were looking to score. He said nope. Against his former team, 91-yard pick six, the longest pick six by a defense, maybe not by a defensive lineman, but it was longest pick six by someone over 300 pounds. I believe that was the stat I saw. Still a fantastic play. He was running well on that one also. But the defense played massively in this game. In the second half, they held the Jets scoreless. It was a big time game for them. The offense looked all right. Obviously, they did enough to win, but you would have liked a better showing on some parts. The main issue, though, was these special teams that got them into the hole, and it was a really tough hill to climb, and the Seahawks were able to do it. It showed resilience on a cross-country trip, which is not the easiest to play, and they found a way to get the win. And Leonard Williams gets the player of the game for this one for the Seahawks. That, again, 91-yard pick six, big-time sacks in this game, all against his former team. You love to see it. And I'm really excited for their matchup next week. Again, they have the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona, a game that is probably going to decide the division as well. Yes, the Rams are also 6-6 alongside Arizona. I still don't feel that great about them in general. But yeah, I do have the Seahawks coming in at number 9 coming up right before a big time matchup. At number 8, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was not expecting that kind of offensive showing from them. They played phenomenally well against this Bengals team, really going stride for stride until the defense was able to make a play for Pittsburgh. But again, the offense, Russ threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Najee Harris ran for 75 yards. Just a phenomenal performance that started off really rough with that pick six that Russ threw. Arguments there about should have been DPI or not, but that's still whatever. So at the end of the day, Russ played phenomenally well, stepping up after that pick six and just laying it down on Cincinnati. And again, up to the point the defense underperformed, gave it up 38, but they made a big time play when they needed to with that TJ Watt strip sack that really set the tone, not set the tone, but it really propelled them to this win. It came relatively late in this game, and again, was massive. It allowed the Steelers to go up by 2 scores. And this was a back and forth game for the majority of it. Steelers had a lead under and a half, but even still, it was a really, really fun game to watch in the background during this 1 o'clock window. Was not expecting a shootout between these two teams. It was an uncharacteristic game for the Steelers, I feel, so I'm not really expecting this show going forward. If it was a case where it's been a few weeks, but the offense showed earlier on in the season that they can have these massive, massive games, then maybe it would have propelled them a bit more up these rankings. But because I'm not expecting Russ to throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns again this season, I'm not going to help them too much, but still they got the big time win. Still extending their lead within that division, looking well. Here come the Steelers, man. here come the Steelers. If they can just make sure, if they can just get their defense playing at every single game high level like they normally do, they're gonna be a threat of a team. I like what I'm seeing from the Steelers. They come in at number 8. Number 7 is the Minnesota Vikings, and they continue to find ways to win these games that maybe otherwise they shouldn't have. This time against the Arizona Cardinals, and did a good job. The defense did late in this one to force the field goal to give their offense a chance down by 6. And from there, the offense took advantage, got the big time score they needed, took the lead, and then the game sealing interception used by former UCF standout, a star. I was at the UCF game where he was inducted into the UCF Hall of Fame. Shaquille Griffin, big time play there, sealing the game for Minnesota. And even again, the offense played well. Sam Darnold threw for 2 touchdowns, was in much better control of the ball in this game compared to some other games this season. And the main issue was just the lack of a ground game by the Vikings offense. Really not much going. They had 3 separate players each run for 22 yards, including Sam Darnold being one of them. It's not a great day on the ground. But again, the 2 picks against Kyler Murray is what really did this game and helped Minnesota get the win. And Arizona's offense is a relatively really good offense. So the fact that they were able to play well in this against them and held Arizona to pretty average games through the air and through the ground, it's a big showing for this defense that we've known all season long is a top tier defense in the league. But they'll keep showing it. They'll keep making plays. Minnesota's still finding ways to win games as they're now set at 10-2, and they're just waiting for someone to make a mistake within that division. Thursday night's a big time game for the Vikings as it's the Packers and Lions. So I'm not sure who they'll be rooting for, but there's definitely a rooting interest there. Minnesota trying to get that division crown again. It's been one weird season for the Vikings, but they'll take it, especially their fans. They come in at number 7. Number 6 is the Denver Broncos, and very much similar to that Steelers game. I was not expecting it to be that big of an offensive showdown between the 2 teams, but it was a great win nonetheless in that shootout. Bo Nix threw the ball decently well, having a pretty good day. Really highlighted by that 93-yard touchdown pass to Marvin Mims. That was just an absolute beautiful of a throw. Like on a rope, an absolute missile down the field. Loved seeing it in action. It was a beautiful throw. But overall, it was still a pretty solid game for Bo Nix. He had 2 interceptions. The first one was by nowhere means his fault. That ball was tipped like 50 yards into the air. The other one, more so a fault for the play caller, but at the same time, like, you should be able to know not to just chuck that ball down deep in that situation. Wasn't really a fan of that interception that he threw, but for the most part, it was still a good game for him. The defense was the main problem in this one. It was a lackluster showing. And I mean, they gave up 500 yards of passing to Jameis Winston and 4 touchdowns. But on the flip side, Winston did have nearly, I think, either nearly or over 60 passing attempts in this game, which is crazy. And the defense did have 3 interceptions, 2 of them being pick sixes, taking advantage of the fact that Winston was throwing the ball so much and that he tends to make mistakes when he is throwing the ball that much. And again, they played well. They guarded the ground well, which forced Winston to throw the ball a bit more. But there's 2 main players I want to highlight from this Denver defense. Obviously, the one who's been highlighted most of the season so far by especially Broncos fans themselves is Nick Bonito. He played really well. He had 1 of the pick sixes in this game. He had the first one and was getting incredible pressure, forcing bad throws, playing really well off that edge. The other one is Jaquan McMillan. He had the game-sealing pick 6, and he was making plays left and right, batting the ball down, making big-time tackles, just playing really, really well. I like what I'm seeing from this Denver team. They are a sneakily good team in the playoffs. If they get the right matchup in the wildcard round, they could surprise people. They come in at number 6 with definitely a lot to come, with definitely a lot in store for them. Number 5 is the Kansas City Chiefs, and all hail whatever devil magic that they have on their side, because they're finding ways to win games in ways that should not make any sense. This time with the Raiders miscommunicating on the final play, which led to the Chiefs picking up the botched snap. Just like how? I don't get it. But even again, the Chiefs did not play great in this game. The defense is what played really well for the majority of it. They let AOC kind of cook in that fourth quarter, but throughout 3 quarters, they played well. The offense was lackluster and was kind of missing most of this game because again they only put up 19 points. Just not a great showing from that offense, but their defense played well enough. Their devil magic comes in clutch, and I understand the miscommunication that happened. Ryan Fitzpatrick did a great job dissecting it afterwards. Whereas when you go in a silent count, it's more so up to what the right guard sees to then tell the center to snap the ball. And Aiden O'Connell's trying to get everyone lined up. Right guard misinterpreted it, told the center to snap the ball, and Chiefs win because of it. But it's just like how the Chiefs miraculously find ways to win games. Honestly, if who knows if even if that doesn't happen, there's a chance that Daniel Carlson misses the kick anyway, or they block it again, and we're still talking about their insane luck and devil magic. Another thing I want to point out is the fact that yes, it is a skill to win games like this, but they are still also just getting lucky against worser teams in some capacity. How will this transfer to the playoffs? I have no idea. I believe it was Ryan Fitzpatrick as well who pointed out that this Chiefs team is relatively similar to that 2019 Patriots team or the 2020 or 21 Steelers, the one that they went 11-0 before losing. Where yeah, they found ways to win games, but come playoff time, where they play a team who is playing for their lives, you're not gonna be able to get that same luck. We'll see. I doubt the Chiefs even get to the point where they could be bounced in the first round, but who knows? They come in at number 5 and their devil magic continues to run wild. Number 4 is the Green Bay Packers. That was a statement win on Thanksgiving for the Packers in the frigid temperatures of Lambeau Field against the Dolphins. They played well and physically throughout the entirety of that game. And even from the jump, when the offense went 3 and out to begin the game, they still took advantage of the conditions and Miami not being used to it. They got that muffed punt, and that led to pretty much the game being over. As once the Packers got up big, 14-0 after a following drive where they used their physicality getting ahead of some Dolphins players and ruined that drive. It was over. Pretty much most people knew it was over by that point. And the Packers offense played well. Josh Jacobs ran all over Miami like I expected him to do, both through the air and through the ground. And it's just Miami has a lot of work to do. Green Bay is ready to make a big time playoff push this year again. So I'm not too surprised by that. And the defense came up big late in this game. Miami had a first and goal from the 1, and they got stuffed 3 straight times, and it was turnover on downs. And it would have made it a 1-score game late, relatively late, with like 10 minutes left. And who knows how different the game is after that. But we don't get to see. The Packers know how to play in these conditions. The Dolphins obviously don't. They took advantage from the jump. And yeah. The big thing is that they also took advantage of the lackluster Miami ground game. The ground defense by Green Bay played really well. It's just the Packers are a fun team to watch. Their offense is really good. They're creative with the play calls. They're finding ways to get the ball in the hands of their top weapons. And the defense has the players to make plays. They're one of the youngest teams, if not the youngest team in the NFL. And they're a threat they're as big of a threat as the Packers have ever been with Aaron Rodgers. They're a great team, playing well. They have a big time matchup on Thursday night against the Lions. There's gonna be a fun game to watch. Packers come in at number 4. Number 3 is the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a big time win against another top team in the NFL on Sunday afternoon against the Baltimore Ravens. And Saquon Barkley really wasn't doing much throughout 3 quarters, but come the 4th, he stepped up, made the plays when he needed to, including the game-sealing touchdown from 30-plus yards out. Hurts, I feel like, could have played better. There were some moments where he missed some throws, but he used his mobility well and made the plays when he needed to. And again, you get to win no matter you get to win. You're feeling good no matter what. Yeah, I'm obviously, even though you know you have stuff to work on for next week, you get to win. It's a little bit easier to deal with. And they did benefit from Justin Tucker just becoming washed, and I hate to see it because Justin Tucker is one hell of a kicker. But man, you miss those kicks when he did, and they completely changed the game. But even then, the Ravens offense was held to a pretty minimal performance on this one, thanks to the defensive effort that played really well, considering that they just lost Brandon Graham the previous week. And they keep a solid lead in the division, a good stand in the playoffs. This was a big time win for the Eagles, showing that they can hang with some of these teams that are viewed higher than them, even despite the record and everything. and they hand Lamar Jackson his second loss to an NFC team. Playing well, they come in at number 3. Number 2 is the Buffalo Bills. They're the first team to clinch the division, and it is the first weekend of December, basically. That was a massive win in the snow against the 49ers. They took advantage of the fact that the 49ers are a relatively warmer weather team. Yeah, they play in San Francisco, which is in Northern California, but they're so not used to the snow the same way Buffalo is. And we saw that from right out the jump. 49ers players were slipping all over the place. Meanwhile, the Bills were able to get the offense going relatively quickly and just playing well. Took an early 7-3 lead and never looked back. And yes, the 49ers offense is also incredibly banged up, but still, you take advantage of those matchups when you get them, and that's something that the Bills are able to do really well, that a bunch of other teams struggle with when it comes to just playing above your opponent's level, like you should be able to do. So they played well. Josh Allen, he's the front runner for MVP, or at least he should be. He ran for a touchdown like you expected in a game like this. He passed for a touchdown, and he even had a pass and touchdown that was caught by himself. Just no idea. He's playing phenomenally well. I don't get it. I hate it because I hate it because he's in the AFC East alongside my Dolphins. But I have to have respect because it is not every day you see someone play the way he does. So you enjoyed what it's like. I'm enjoying watching him while I can. But man, do I hate his guts and wish he was on a different team and still playing at this level. That way I can actually more properly root for him. Ground game was working well with Ray Davis and James Cook and Ty Johnson, the whole lot that they have over there. Matt Collins made a good grab along the sideline and pointing that out because he's a former Dolphin. And his pregame routine of never wearing shoes is impressive, even despite the conditions. But yeah, Buffalo clinched the division. They're riding fine. They're riding hot. For the rest of the season, they come in at number 2. And number 1, who else but the Detroit Lions? Despite the theatrics at the end of that game, the Lions still got the win on Thanksgiving, breaking their streak of losses on Thanksgiving, which I'm pretty sure was at 7 games on that one. And they played a relatively dominant game, especially in that first half where they got up to a big lead. Then they started to coast, and that nearly bite them in the ass. But luckily, they were playing the Chicago Bears. It was a good time winning against a divisional foe, and you can tell that the offense was just having fun out there for the majority of it. I mean, early on in that game, they had to try to get Penny Sewell a passing attempt. And that's just funny. The defense played well early on. They made plays when they needed to late. But again, they did get lucky thanks to the disaster class that was that final 30 seconds that they did cause by getting a sack on Caleb Williams just outside of field goal range. So I'll give them the credit there. The one downside I have for the Lions in this game, which is the fact that Jake Bates finally missed a kick in his NFL career. Hate to see it, but you'd rather have it happen during the season instead of come playoff time looking at you, Minnesota, where that happened to y'all against Atlanta in the playoffs. But yeah, again, I'm still a big fan of Jake Bates. I think he's going to be just fine. You miss one kick, it's bound to happen. He will bounce back and play well the rest of the way. And the Lions sitting on top of the NFC, sitting on top of the NFC North. Massive game on Thursday Night Football between them and the Packers in Ford Field. It should be a pretty damn good game. I do have the Lions coming in as the best team in the NFL and on top of these power rankings. All right, there you have it. Quick little rundown. The Commanders coming in at number 10, the Seahawks at 9, Steelers at 8, Vikings at 7, Broncos at 6, Chiefs at 5, Packers at 4, Eagles at 3, Bills at 2, and the Detroit Lions at number 1. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.